to Carpool Conversations, where our goal is to equip parents to have meaningful, Christ-centered conversations with their kids. I'm Amy Lowe.
And I am Sara Jones. And today we're going to be talking about when God calls our family to something new.
Sara, this topic can be a little scary.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but routine and rhythm is like a real thing for me. And we also know that kids need like a rhythm and a routine, but we also know that we live in an ever-changing world, throwing different things at them in all kinds of ways. And we want them to be prepared to deal with those things before they leave the nest. So it's important that they kind of learn some of these things as they grow up in different ways that are age appropriate. And so today we're going to be talking about specifically when God calls your family to something new. And let me just say that could be in small ways or it could be in big ways. I think we automatically think of the big ways and the big things. And Andre's going to talk about a big thing that he had to do with his family and help us as parents navigate it. But I think it could also be those small things, going from elementary school to middle school, going from middle school to high school. There's all kinds of changes coming for your kids, big and small, that God wants us to walk in. And so you can be thinking about what those things are, and I bet this content is going to help you in either of those places and equip you for the other. And we have Andre Rose with us today. I love it when we get to have a guest share more about their experience and give us some tips and wisdom. And so, Sara, tell us about Andre.
Yes, I would love to read Andre's bio. So Andre is a passionate communicator who strives to bring joy and enthusiasm wherever he goes. And I have been a recipient of his joy and enthusiasm. Andre currently serves on the staff development team with Winship Camps, seeking to develop college students and encourage them in their pursuit of the Lord as they serve within camp ministry during the summer. Andre, he's a die-hard Georgia Bulldog.
Go Dogs.
Oh, Bulldogs fan. Where in 2012, he earned a Bachelor's of Science degree, and in 2016, earned a Master's of Theology from Dallas Theological Seminary. Andre has a deep desire to curate remarkable experiences that people will remember for a lifetime. And in light of that, you will regularly find Andre gathering people in his home in Atlanta, Georgia, with the love of his life, Kimberly, and their two beautiful girls, Zola, who is 4, and Josephine, who is 2, around a meal and a perfectly crafted cup of coffee. That's my love language, coffee, and a thought-provoking conversation. What a beautiful write-up. Yeah. I love that. You love coffee.
Oh my gosh, I do. In fact, I make a cup of coffee every morning using my Chemex coffee maker. It is how I start my day. When we talk about rhythms and routines, that is one rhythm that is never missed.
So would you call yourself a coffee snob?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
100%.
Yes.
I will drive to the coffee shop that has the best beans. I will not dial it in and get some from Kroger.
Strong.
Strong? Single origin from a unique country like Ethiopia or Colombia or Guatemala. Like I'm all about the flavors and the profiles. So it can be strong, it can be medium, as long as it tastes great and helps me start my day. I'm all for it.
I'm going to bring you my favorite coffee.
Great.
It's my local coffee shop.
And you can scale it on a scale of 1 to 10.
I can't wait to get your thoughts.
What's the Andre level of how good it is? You're going to find out.
Do you put cream in your coffee or do you drink it straight up?
No, that is the
me
hot
too.
sports opinion here. Actually, hot sports opinion in my home. My wife is all about the creamers and things and stuff. But it is just perfect in its simple essence.
Yeah.
Same.
Just
I
some
need to get there. I'm just not there yet.
You will.
I will. Okay.
You'll get there.
I'll work on it. Okay. Andre, our question that we always ask our guests is tell us about the stage of parenting that you're in and what is fun about this particular stage that you're in.
So we are in that toddler phase. As Sara said, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. They're both girls. And we love just all things princesses and ballet and dress up, and so in our stage of life, we are in the middle of helping our 2-year-old potty train, which is a lot of fun and can be crazy at times depending upon where she's at in that developmental stage. But typically you'll find us singing and dancing to some Disney princess song or watching a Disney princess movie. I will have to say, in my 35 years of life, I went for a long time not seeing a number of Disney princess movies.
Not anymore.
Now,
You've seen them all.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite?
Tangled is a good one. It is
It's so good.
Yeah. I did not know the full theme song to Part of Your World from The Little Mermaid, and now if you put me on the spot, I can
got
belt
it.
I've got it.
Karaoke.
Oh yeah. But we also, what's been fun, but also I think a little bit challenging in our world is, I actually have 3 kids. So earlier this summer, we got a chance to welcome baby Theo into the world, and sadly he had just a condition that made it hard for him to thrive, and so he actually unfortunately passed away back in June, and so that has been a journey in and of itself that could be obviously a whole podcast on its own, navigating grief with young kids and moving through that. But I think what's been really cool is the opportunities that we have had as a family with my girls to talk about him and honor his life. And Zola is always one to say, we have 3 kids in our family, to anybody who asks, which is super sweet, especially coming from someone like a 4-year-old who is just so wise and as smart as she is. So it's been sweet.
Yes. I love that. And that our hope and that our forever home is eternity,
Yeah.
and like passing that or cultivating that in your home to talk about. Like, this isn't our forever home.
That's right.
But baby Theo is in our forever home.
Yeah.
That's so, we can do another podcast if you'd like.
Oh, I'd
I'm
love
already
to.
inviting you back.
Come on. Well, hey, I may not have all the answers for sure, but I definitely can share our experiences and even I'll talk a little bit, but just the ways in which the Lord has just shown up in our family, even being here in light of transition, right? Like we moved here and a transition happened, and then a major life event happened, and we've had to just remember that, as you said, our hope is in the Lord, and He is and will always be faithful.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Let it be so.
Amen.
Okay. Can you tell us a story when you first sensed God might be calling your family to something new? You briefly mentioned it, but about your moving and even how you got here.
Yeah. As we said earlier, we talk about rhythms, in our family, every so often, we do a rhythm of like a pulse check, a temperature check to see like, how are we doing? Where are we at in our world? And, what do we feel like the Lord is doing in our lives currently? And maybe what is He calling us to? And, for Kim and I, at the time in which we were sort of navigating through a sense of calling and transition, we had Zola, who was 2.5, and we were pregnant with Jojo, who was to be born really soon. And Kim really felt this urge to want to be home. She's a teacher and has been for about 8 years. And at the time was really feeling this burden to steward this season of her life, to just be mom. And in our current context, where we were in Texas, we were able to sort of navigate through that a little bit, but we began to sense that this wouldn't necessarily be the forever thing. And for us, and I think me in particular, as I think about leading my family, one of the things that I find to be so central in my life is, the scriptures that call us to steward our families, and in particular, my love and pursuit of my wife and the dreams and desires that she has so that she can flourish. And so really, this conversation around transition was born out of, we really believe in our family, in our context, it is a beautiful thing for mom to be mom. And so that sensed to stir, and we began to look up and look out and see what the Lord might do. And how we got to WinShape was just, I think, in a really cool God story, an act of His faithfulness in that time of looking up and looking out, where I had served back in 2015 on a camp team, which was one of the greatest summers of my life. And if you're listening to the podcast and you're like, how do I be a part of a camp team and serve, I mean, you should just go to windshape.org and find out more about how you can serve with camp. But in the years since, I served in 2015, and it had been about 8 or so years after that a friend of mine who was on staff here had invited me to come and serve at staff training. And in the particular way that I was serving, I got to speak to all of the summer staff that was training and being prepared to be launched.
And you were waiting on that baby to be born.
And I was waiting on that baby to be born. And literally I was like, I may need to leave this stage because we're like there. Funny enough, she was born 5 days after I got back from speaking at staff training. But that evening, I had finished speaking, and part of my like natural just rapport and creating those experiences, as you talked about, is getting with summer staff and just hearing their stories. And I found myself surrounded by about 15 or so summer staff. We're just chatting and talking. And in that moment, the Lord really very clearly, intangibly just urged me to go, this is an opportunity. This is a place for you to leverage your influence and the work that God has done in your life for these summer staff. And so after that, there was a call that was made around an opening that had showed up, and the timing couldn't have been more perfect. And we prayed, and here we are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Andre, I love what you said at the beginning about how y'all regularly, as a married couple, stop and think about, where does God want me? And I think that might be what I take away from this podcast, because I think so often we like have our head down.
That's right.
And are just going and are not pausing to look up and look around.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of rhythm is something that we all should be doing more of, I think, because it's easy just to get laser focused and not look up and
That's
out
right.
and miss some things.
That's right.
Yeah, it's just wisdom.
Yeah.
It's like wise. I think that's why I love the rhythm of Sabbath so much, is because it is an opportunity of time where everything else is really quiet, and that we can say, Lord, speak to us.
That's right.
We just want
We're
to commune with you.
open-handed to be and do what you want us to do. So bravo for doing that. Okay. So Andre, you're making this big decision.
That's right.
You're feeling the Lord. And the door opened. How did you talk to Kim about, like, okay, this is a great opportunity.
That's right.
But should we say yes? Like, is it what the Lord wants, or is it just a good opportunity? And I think that's probably one of the biggest questions people have when that kind of thing comes up. And maybe it's different for each person and how the Lord works. So how did he show that to you guys? Yeah,
that's a really great question. I mean, you mentioned being open-handed, and I think honestly, that's really how we began to approach, this decision. Like I said, I just got back from that trip, and a phone call was given to me around this opportunity. And I remember receiving that phone call, and it was around, hey, what do you think about this opportunity? There's an opening. You should consider it. And at the time, I was serving in a student ministry at a church back in Texas, and I was piloting a couple of new things, and within our student ministry around missions and wanting to encourage our students to really leverage their faith in different contexts. And the timing just didn't feel right. So I actually on the phone called the person who reached out to me back, and I said, I don't think this is the time. And so actually I'm not interested in the job because of what, I was doing at the time. And I really, in that time, and saying no and moving through the summer, just began to reflect on a passage in Proverbs 16 that just talks about, as a man plans his steps, the Lord directs his way.
Yes.
And truly, that is indicative of how we got here, that there was a plan that we had in place, a direction that we were headed, and the Lord just moved our steps in so much of a beautiful fashion that after the summer had concluded and I had gotten those initiatives off the ground and we had a successful time on mission with the student ministry I was leading, there was a couple of things that we were thinking through around the church that we were serving at, and some doors just closed in a unique way that then pointed us back to, wait a minute, there was this opportunity that was given to me, that was offered to me back in the summer earlier on. I think this might be the Lord's way of saying, you have actually completed the work that I've called you to do in this current context. Here's work that I have for you to do. Let's talk about it and let's think about it. And, in light of that, moving towards that was very hard because my wife is Texas through and through. She grew up in Austin. There's something about Texans that you just, once you live there, if you were born there, you just love it. And there's no other place like Texas, but I'm partial to Georgia, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
And everything in my wife's mind was saying, stay, 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 stay. And yet at the time it felt like the Lord was beginning to call us to go. And so we began to coat this decision in a lot of prayer. And then the biggest thing was just counsel. We sought counsel from some of our dearest friends who we were walking with and we walk with still. We sought counsel from the lead pastor of the church that was on staff at. I pulled him aside and said, hey, here's a opportunity we're thinking about. What do you think? Which is a super risky thing to say when you're on staff at a church going, hey, I'm actually looking up and thinking about something else. Talk to our parents. And I will say there was not this resounding, booming voice from the Lord that said, go. I don't know that I could say that definitively. And I would not also say that if we chose to stay, that we would be operating outside of the will of God. I think when I think about the will of God and what he's doing in our lives, it's really leverage your life to make much of him in every context, whether that's in the current position you're in or a new opportunity that comes. And so really it was, hey, stay, you're doing the will of God. Go, you're doing the will of God.
Yeah.
What makes the most sense for you guys where you are in this age and stage? And we just could not escape the reality that Kim wanted to be mom. And this was the best way to help her be full-time mom, which she's really loving and enjoying in this season.
Yes. The Lord is the giver of good gifts.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And when he made a way for me to be able to stay home with my kids, I just felt like I was so grateful because it was only through him that I could do that when my oldest was little. And my husband, who's very responsible and organized and thought out, and he was like, it just does not add up on a piece of paper.
That's right.
I'm so sorry. And I'm like, I'll be homeless. We can live in a tent.
That's right.
We can live in a tent.
Tie that belt,
But the Lord was kind in knowing that I desired that. And so I actually wore my cowgirl boots for Kim today.
Hey,
my sister
on.
lives in Texas as well, and I understand everything you mean. So I know that was hard for her to say, like, we're gonna move to Georgia, where I love this place. But I'm glad that the details were in his hands. Okay, so next question, Andre. Fear is real, especially for our kids when change does happen. And I would love to know how you helped, if they had any, how you helped your kids navigate any fear that came up with change.
Yeah, fear, we talk about the parenting stage that we're in. We're also in, and I don't know if you ever get out of the stage of fear, Amy, Sara,
No, you don't.
It just always feels like a pervasive thing that pops up. Funny side note, my daughter is deathly afraid of trash trucks. I think it's the sound more than anything, loud diesel engines bumbling down the street, this big, huge thing which gobbles up trash, what's happening. And so, oftentimes we do a little bit of desensitization training where I'll take her outside. I'm like, the trash truck is fine and it's good. And I think we're on the other side of that. Maybe ask me in a couple of months. But in all seriousness, considering this move, the person that would have the most impact in our world was Zola. JoJo was, 8-9 months. So, she's going to go wherever. At the time in the street that we lived on in Texas, it really is like a beautiful picture of community where, the people don't leave their doors unlocked, or don't leave their doors locked rather. The lead pastor of the church lived right across the street from us. Their daughter was intimately in relationship with Zola as an older mentor friend who she now will say I have 3 sisters. JoJo, my little sister, and then Elliot and my 2 of her friends back in Texas. And so we knew that, this transition was going to be hard for her because all she's known is our house in Texas on the street that we lived in, around the community that we lived. And I think one of the beautiful things in helping her navigate through that was to remind her, and that one, God is with us wherever we go. And when we have fear, we can take that fear to the Lord in prayer and know that he is good and gracious. We talked about giving good gifts, and he will give us beautiful, beautiful gifts along the way. And so I believe in getting on your child's level. You know, there were many, many times. I mean, I'll keep it 100. You know, there were many nights where I'm on my knees looking at my daughter, telling her to breathe, reminding her that we are okay. You are okay. She had just transitioned when we were in Texas to her big girl bed. Out of a crib, you know, side note, keep your kid in the crib as long as they can, because
Yes.
when they're mobile, they are mobile.
Yes. If I could write that in a parent handbook, it would be, if they cannot climb out, you keep them in there.
That's right. And if they can climb
Forever.
out, like put them back in there, right? No. But when we moved to Georgia, you know, sleeping in her room was really hard for her.
Yeah.
And, you know, there were many nights, like I said, where we would be in her room and, you know, she's not afraid of the dark. She's not afraid of, you know, her room as much as I think it was the reality that my friends are not here and I'm alone in a different way than I had been in my prior 3 years of life. And so I think reminding her to breathe, reminding her to like know that, hey, mom and dad are here for you, and whatever you need, we are ready and able to provide that for you as the Lord gives us the ability to. And so we've navigated that journey that way. I'm trying to bury the lead because you're going to ask me this next question here. That will actually be a God story in that. But she's doing really good.
Yeah.
And again, JoJo is none the wiser. She just lives her best life.
Yeah, you know what I have found, that when my kids are looking to me to model what it looks like to not be afraid.
Yeah.
And to have like our hope. I think having hope is not natural. It's supernatural.
Right.
And so when we can, through our own fear, have that hope, it's like, oh, I can too. Yeah.
And I have one other thing, you know, to that fear. I think in Zola's mind, the move felt really permanent. It felt like, hey, we're moving from this place and I'm never going to see these people again. I'm never going to interact with them again. And of course, in our digital age, in place and space where there's FaceTime and all kinds of other meaningful ways to communicate, we have just leveraged those really important relationships with Zola. And so prior to us moving, you know, we had scheduled a couple of times for some of those friends to come out and visit as a surprise too. So back in the fall, we literally had just moved maybe a month or two into Atlanta, into our new home. And Elliot, her friend, came to visit, and it was the breath of fresh air, the wind in Zola's sails that she needed.
Sweet.
And we regularly make it back to Texas so that she can be with her other sisters, as she calls them.
So good. And pretty soon, Andre, they can go to camp together.
I know.
Okay,
I
yeah.
know.
That's
I
so
know.
fun.
We had just moved that week, and closing ceremony was happening up at Barry. And I looked at Kim and I said, let's go. We need to go to closing ceremony. And so we popped up there, and I mean, Zola was and has been enamored with camp at Barry.
She's going to thrive.
Yes.
She's gonna thrive.
And it was so warm and inviting. And so we could instantly see that there's this place for her. There's a space for her.
Yeah, and get her friend from Texas on a plane.
That's right. Come on.
Pick
we got
them up.
this.
Go drive
We
up there.
offer airport transportation.
That's what I hear.
Okay, Andre, so you have little kids.
That's right.
And I think when you have little kids, obviously, you know, there's only so much you can share with them about the process. And a lot of times it's like, hey, this change is coming and here we go. But as they get older, I have older kids, and I think that it's just neat to think about and talk with your spouse about, like, how do we involve these kids in the decision? A couple of years ago, we had a possible change on the table for us, and we invited our kids in to the process. And that, I think, was just different from us, because when we moved here 8 years ago, they were a little bit smaller, and we kind of just informed them, and they were great. But now that they're older, it's like, hey, you get to have a say in this, and you get to speak into it, and you get to be a part of the process with us as parents, figuring this thing out no matter what we do. And I think that's a beautiful thing to be able to model to them. How do we make decisions? How do we lean on the Lord? How do we discern when it's not like clear, you know, and which is all of us all the time. So I would say, as your kids get older, don't be afraid to invite them into the process in whatever way is age appropriate for them, because I think that builds some things in them that maybe will matter in the future.
I will take that to the bank and remember that for sure. Thank you, Amy.
And then, okay, so you talked about this. Yeah. Whenever we moved here, from Tennessee to Georgia, we saw the Lord
Yeah.
and just be really good to us
Yeah.
and do things for us that he did not have to do.
That's
but
right.
we recognized it because it was all new
That's
and
right.
it was a big deal, you know? And so even the kids will tell us now stories when they tell people stories of us moving here. They tell the neat things that the Lord did. And I won't share them because that's your question.
Yeah.
But so tell us for you, how did you see the Lord work in the transition?
Yeah. You know, as we were processing the move, you know, we were in the process of looking for homes. We knew that it was coming. We knew there was a time that we were going to move. And so we took several trips out to, you know, Atlanta to look for where we were going to live and all those things. And while we were doing that, we were sort of intentionally also planning times for Zola to connect with her friends and be with her people and, you know, experience in some ways the last of that time, you know, that it's not the last time you would see them, but it was the last time that we would hang out in this way where you live down the street and, you know, we can walk out of each other's houses and you guys can go and play and do all those things. And I think one of the biggest prayers was that when we moved to Atlanta and wherever we moved to, that there would be a friend, that there would be a friend for Zola. And we settled in a community outside of Atlanta, kind of near where some of my family lives in this newer development. And we were moving in. I remember, I mean, literally like this was yesterday. We were moving in and we were setting up and getting things settled. And as we were setting up beds and stuff, this lady walked across the street.
Stop.
And knocked on the door. And she said, "Hey, are you guys moving in?" And it's like, yes, boxes, all the things, right? But of course, it's the question that breaks the ice. And she said, "Well, my daughter is turning 3 today.
Yes.
And we're having a birthday party at our house.
Andre.
You guys need to come over and Zola needs to meet my daughter because they'll become like the best of friends."
Sweet.
So literally right across the street in our neighborhood, there's a girl who is Zola's age, who both Zola and JoJo love to life itself. And they have formed this beautiful like friendship. And I mean, if I keep talking about it, I'm going to like bawl my eyes out
I'm
here.
already crying.
Because
I'm
it's like, I mean, you couldn't quite know that was going to be what you were going to do. And it was like the Lord saw for her this need for connection and community. And here it is provided in this sweet
on
girl.
Day one.
On day one. I called my mom and she's like, "What are y'all doing this afternoon?" I was like, "Well, we're going to a birthday party for a girl who lives across the street." And I mean, literally yesterday, she came over and they played and they're both doing ballet. And I mean, they just fit really well. And she's an only child. So she sees by extension, Zola and JoJo as her new sisters, which is really sweet. So, I mean, in that way, and then, you know, for us, I mean, the Lord has just provided some really cool people to be that like intentional community. I mentioned earlier, you mentioned in my bio that I enjoy breaking bread over a good meal and perfectly crafted cup of coffee and conversation. And, you know, that was something that I was hoping that I would find. And the Lord was so gracious and kind to give us, both Kim and I, a couple that we've been now getting to walk with in the last year and a half of us being here. And it truly, like, we have truly seen the Lord show up in that way for us.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
I love, again, we've already talked about God just giving us good gifts and he knows the desires and he wants us, like your daughter, he's like, "I got you a friend and she's going to be a neighbor." We do life with our next door neighbors pretty closely and it is a gift to my mama soul just to know that like I've got community. And we've chosen different paths for our families in a lot of ways, but following Jesus is one that we are right in step with. And so I love doing life with them. I would love to know one piece of parenting advice that you have for our listeners who may be like in the midst of this, who may be wrestling or discerning like what God is calling them or their family towards.
Yeah, I think for Kim and I, you know, we we have, over the course of us being married, now 8 years going on 9 next year, which would be super sweet.
Congrats.
Thank you. To really hone in on a collective vision for our family, right? When I think about the time that God has given us to steward, we want to steward it in a way that honors him. And I think the best way for us to do that is by collectively uniting around a vision for our family. What key things do we want to, at the end of our life, Lord willing, when we're sitting on that porch in the rocking chair reflecting on our life together, we can say that we collectively lived out in our vision together. And I think for us, one of the highest things that we have just had vision for is cultivating Christ-centered community, that in any decision that we make, that is at the forefront, that we want to be able to be people that do that, because I think being in community is so, so very, very important. And so when it came to this decision to move, in this particular instance, we were already thinking through, where can we establish that here? And can we establish that here, right? And I think if that was a hard thing for us to do, if we felt like, I don't think that we can establish that Christ-centered community that sits within our vision, I don't know that I'd be sitting in this chair across from you, because I think that is something that is sort of our North Star, if you will, when we think about decisions that we make. And so I don't know what that is for the listeners out there. It could be providing a safe and warm space for your kids to thrive and grow, or it could be making sure that you guys have the things that you need to be able to care for family long-term, right? We think about our family context. That's another part of our vision, is that we are in a place where we might be caring for our family, our parents in particular, as they get older in a unique way. And so getting ourselves set up for that is something that we want to think about. But I think primarily for us, it's sitting down and establishing, what is that vision for us? And does this opportunity fit within that vision that we believe the Lord has given us? And if it does, go for it. And if not, it's okay to say no, because that just means the Lord is doing something else. And what better way to trust him than to say, you know what, this actually isn't it for us. And it may check all the boxes that we would hope that it would check, but it doesn't check this one that is our vision for our family. Because it doesn't check this one, then we have to say no.
Yeah, that's good. What's vital?
Yeah.
I mean, we did a podcast it was last season or maybe even season 1 about family values. And we've had a couple of maybe different ones. So I think that's one to go back and check out if you haven't listened to it, because if you haven't figured out what those things are, maybe that's a good next step for you and your spouse to write it down and to pray about it and think it through. And that will help you to decide on things in the future.
I love the North Star. We just wrapped camp where it was like the lighthouse. It was like, what is your anchor? What is your North Star, your lighthouse, what brings you back?
Yep. Taking the time to think that through. Well, Andre, we've loved having you on the podcast today. Thank you for joining us and for your story and sharing it with us. I know it's going to help the people that listen. And we always end with a question, Andre.
All right.
And it's for our listeners, because what we want is for them to continue this conversation with their kids over the dinner table and the carpool line. I always need new questions for the dinner table. And so we got you one today to wrap. Here it is. It's kind of a 2-parter.
Okay.
The first part is, what is the scariest part of a big change?
Okay.
And what is the most exciting part of a big change? And I love asking both of those questions, because I think automatically we go to the hard part and the scary part and the fearful part, like we talked about. But there's also an exciting part to it. So when you're at the dinner table tonight or in the carpool line, you can ask this to your kids, start the conversation with them, and maybe you'll learn some things about some changes that they're dealing with in their own lives that you can address. And you can talk about maybe changes in your own life as a parent to help them see how you navigate things. So we hope that conversation goes great, and we really appreciate you listening to the podcast today, and we will see you next time.